Welcome back to WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte, and those streaming live through the free TuneIn Radio app. You're listening to Ask Lori, and I'm your host, Lori Ann Davis. If you're just tuning in, we are discussing loving with healthy boundaries. And if you are frustrated because you have not found that perfect person in your life and would like some help, please go onto my website at lorianndavis.com. That's LORIANN Davis.com, and look at my Successful Singles group, because on January 15th, I am hosting an open discussion on dating, relationships, and sex, and we are going to help answer all of your questions. And today we have joining us Beth Badour. And Beth is going to talk to us about living and loving with healthy boundaries. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you and the public today.
We have great conversations, so we thought that we needed to share these great conversations with everybody else.
Yes, exactly.
Why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit about what you do and how to contact you?
Great. My name again is Beth Badour, and I'm a licensed physical therapist. And at my private clinic at 5 Elements of Healing in Concord, North Carolina, where you can come and see me directly or you can call me on the phone, I teach yoga, physical therapy, and I concentrate on women's health issues. What that has to do with is bowel and bladder incontinence, pelvic pain, pain with intercourse, any area that's the hip and pelvic region, Huna and Reiki, which is energy work, and also coaching, wellness coaching particularly, having to do with relationships and wellness. So I focus in primarily on women. I love working with women. And you can reach me at I'm going to give you my cell phone this time, so you can reach me directly, 704-996 5414. You can find me on the website at creativelifebydesign.net, or you can email me at creativelifebydesign@yahoo.com.
So today we're going to be talking about loving with healthy boundaries. So how do you love with healthy boundaries?
Well, today we're going to talk about all the different ways that we can love with healthy boundaries. Mm-hmm. It's important to know the types of boundaries and then how we can establish those boundaries. Mm-hmm. Because just like with anything in life, Lori, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a plan, somebody else is going to make that plan for you and treat you the way that they want to treat you, rather than giving you the respect that you deserve and that you command. When you finally realize what your truth is, what your values, what your morals are, you can decide your boundaries. If you don't know what your truth is, if you have trouble speaking your truth, if you can't be bold and really tell people how you feel and how you want to be treated, mm-hmm. Everything's going to be wishy-washy and
you tend
more muddy.
I don't know if you have found this, but in my practice, I have found that if you don't have those boundaries and you can't set that and you don't understand, mm-hmm. you tend to attract not the people that you want. Exactly. You tend to attract people into your life who are going to take advantage of you, mm-hmm. and who will not treat you well. Yes. Because it's almost like you have victim written across the top of your forehead, right?
And people can feel that. People can sense that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll even target you because of that.
That is true, yes. So we want to avoid all of that.
Exactly. So think about the law of attraction. Who do you want to attract into your life? Happy people, other people that want to have healthy relationships. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has healthy relationships. Right. So if you know your truth, your morals, your values, then you can determine how you want to be treated by giving people guidelines, ways of learning how to treat you. And you do that several different ways. Let's talk about different types of boundaries before we talk about how to establish them. Different ways or different types of boundaries are physical boundaries. Who do you want in your physical space, especially touching you, hugging you, kissing you, or more than that? Mm-hmm. Mental, your thoughts, your opinions, those things that go on up in your brain.
Yeah, whose words do you want taking up expensive real estate in your brain?
Exactly.
Do you want to hear your words or other people's words, mm-hmm. or other people's opinions, right?
Exactly. Spirituality, whether that's religion and God or it's more of a spiritual thing for you, some people will impede on that also unless you have boundaries. Today we're not going to concentrate too much on talking about religion or spirituality, but when you're talking about a person, you're talking about the whole person. Right. So you need to talk about each different area and where those boundaries can be crossed. But today we're going to focus in on some of the other areas. And the last one is your emotions, your feelings. How do you feel? Are people stepping on those emotions? Are you focusing in on the other person and taking on their emotions, or can you hold your space and be happy regardless of what's going on over with the other person? Can you still remain, even if it's not happy, peaceful, satisfied, content, those type of things?
At least you stay kind of neutral. You don't allow them to draw you back down.
Right.
You know, in my life, I had a teenager. She's a little bit beyond that now. But when she was a teenager with all of those crazy moods, it was difficult not to get drawn into her space and to stay in my happier space.
Exactly.
And that was a real learning experience for me. I had worked with teenagers, but having one in your own home, in your own space, you know, right in your nose, is very different. And so that was a good learning experience for me.
I can remember with one of my sons one time, something had happened and he had gotten in trouble. I won't go into the details, but he understood the rules. He didn't follow the rules. He went beyond those boundaries, and he had to learn the hard way. Tough love at my house. And I said, look it. I said, you're sitting in the corner and you're not having a good time. You're having a big pity party. I'm over here. I'm on the couch. I'm going to have a good weekend. So you can either choose to stay over there and have a pity party, or when you're ready, there's all these other things that we can do this weekend and things that we cannot do because of the consequences of what happened. But you can come over and sit with me and we'll have a great weekend. So it's your choice. I decided not to go in having that pity party with the teenager that was upset over the consequences from what he did. So yes.
Yes. Definitely. So I will be more prepared when my two little ones now, I will have two teenagers at once down the road. So I'll be more prepared.
Yes. So again, those are the different types of boundaries. So then we want to learn how to have balanced, healthy, loving relationships.
Yes.
And a lot of that starts with self-care. Loving yourself. If you don't know how to love yourself, how are you going to have a healthy, loving relationship? Right. It's going to be very challenging.
Yeah, you probably aren't capable.
Right.
If you can't find the good in you and love yourself, then you can't see the good in someone else.
And a lot of the times, the people that don't cherish themselves, that don't value themselves, they are doing everything that they possibly can to have the other person love them. So they don't have those boundaries. They don't have those limits. But when you can really express yourself, when you can show through body language, through your words, all these things that we're going to talk about, how to establish these boundaries, it's going to command respect. And once you have respect with that other person and you can be authentic with who you are, then you're more likely to have more freedom with that loving relationship with that other person, regardless of who it is, whether it's loving your neighbor in like a neighborly way, or loving your spouse, loving your partner, loving your child. Love in a big sense. You know, it can be in a romantic or in a bigger sense.
It allows you to draw more people into your life. They'll have different categories in your life.
Yes.
But we can fill our lives with lots of different people in lots of different roles, which really, you know, the show that I was taping earlier, we were talking about having, you know, healthy relationships and living in high definition and not expecting one person to fill all your needs. And so this is great because when you have that and you've got those boundaries, people can come in and fill different little spaces in your life. And that's a great thing, to have lots of choices for lots of people to fill different needs and to have different spaces.
I hear you.
So talk a little bit about how you do that.
Okay. So establishing boundaries. The first thing I would say is words. Words are just so important. What type of words do you use? Are you willing to step out there and speak your truth? It's so important. If you are timid, if you kind of shy away, if you're not willing to take that risk, it's a big risk, put yourself out there, people are going to be more likely to step on those boundaries. But if you know what your values, your morals, your beliefs are, and you're willing to speak that, you can have an intention for where the conversation may go with those words. But if you're not attached to the outcome, if you're just attached to, this is me, this is what I need to speak, and speak it in those terms of I feel this way, I need. If I can see your actions doing this, it will help me to feel this way. But if you start pointing fingers at somebody, then they're going to be on the defensive.
They're going to close off. And so then there's a difference between not saying anything and being aggressive. And we want that middle ground of being able to calmly talk to people about things, which, you know, when I deal with couples in relationships, we definitely teach that, and we talk about how to express your needs and your wants, but to do it in a way that the other person can hear you, because then you're much more likely to get a positive result. And if you don't for some reason, right, then you're still comfortable with you. You know who you are, and you're like, well, okay, this is my space, this is good. Now, in a relationship, if it's a love relationship and you're partners, you may have to go a little in a different direction with it. But for our conversation, you're okay with letting the other person have their space and saying, okay, we just don't agree.
Exactly, yeah. So just to give you some examples, one example might be one person in the relationship really wants to spend a lot of time together. They're happy connecting after work, having dinner together, spending time on the weekends. They may not have a lot of friends outside of that core group at work or their family, and they want a lot of your attention. You may be the type of person that needs more space, needs more time to yourself.
Quiet downtime.
Quiet downtime. So then you have two different types of people.
Right.
So trying to find, like you said, that middle ground. But if you can both speak what is your truth and what you need in a loving relationship, then hopefully you can come together and find that middle ground.
Yes. Very good.
So that's one example. Another example, again, with children, getting back to teenagers. Children need boundaries. From my experience, there's two different types of parenting that I see out there. I see some parents that want to be friends with their teenagers. Then there's others that realize the parenting role, that children need those boundaries. We don't come into this world with experience, with knowledge, with the information that we need to make positive profound choices in our life.
Right, we need guidance.
We need guidance. And sometimes people can tend to want to be friends with their teenagers rather than giving them that guidance. It is so important. Those teenagers need that guidance. They know, if I go beyond this limit, then this is the consequence that's going to happen. And it's different with each teenager. You know, one person it might be to take away money, somebody it might be to take away technology if they go over those boundaries. So it's different with each individual. It's not the same across the board with every person.
But how we present and how we keep those boundaries for ourselves, we are teaching our children then how to have good boundaries. So that's, you know, we are loving ourselves. If we're going to kind of wrap up, we are loving ourselves. We are loving our partner in healthy ways. We are loving our friends that come into our lives in healthy ways. And we're loving our children in healthy ways, allowing us to have great relationships with everyone else and still feeling good and solid and strong within ourselves. So this is absolutely fabulous information. It was so wonderful. We'll have to have you back on to talk more about boundaries, or maybe a wealth of information. We have talked about possibly talking about women and how to take care of themselves to feel better.
That would be lovely.
So we might have to do that again soon. So listeners, be on the listen out for Beth's name, because she'll be back. We'll be talking about other things. Thank you so much for joining us today. And listeners, contact Beth, check out her website, find out more information about her. She's absolutely fabulous. And stay tuned, because after the break, we will continue our discussion on loving with healthy boundaries. You're listening to Ask Lori, and I'm your host, Lori Ann Davis. You're tuned into WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte.